same time. Sort of like patting your head and rubbing your stomach. How do I be loving and gentle and encouraging to you, and also limit setting and strong? They need to be shown that limits can be firm, but the loving connection's still there. That's what authoritarian parents can't do. What authoritarian parents can't do is to say that there's limits and discipline, and yet still feel warmly and connected, and I love you, and I'm in favor of you, and you're my pal, and we're together, and all that. For authoritarian parents, if you're good, then we're slick. If you're bad, then I'm mad at you. Okay? And there's a split between what you do and how I love you. All right? So one thing you can do is, if you're loving and limits at the same time, if you can say, yeah, you did so-and-so, so you got to miss recess today, but man, I'm for you, and we'll like do some activity and all that, and other kids will come back in, you try again tomorrow. It's like nothing personal. I love you. But you got to stay in behavior. It's loving limits always says, I'm for you, but you got to pay, the piper here. All right? They've never had that. Authoritarian parents don't operate that way. They say you kind of need to be punished. All right? That's one of my personal, I love John Roseman, and I see a lot of value in what he's talking to the parents today about. That's one concern I have about him is that he's very much into limits, and I don't see him working very hard to integrate the loving piece in there too. And I think they have to go together. Somehow my limit setting needs to be in a gentle and loving enough way that the child knows that I'm for them. I don't see him struggling with that very much. But what do you give authoritarian parents? This might be the hardest question to ask you. How do you respond to authoritarian parents? How could you help them? Medication. There's often drooling as a side effect, but if it really comes down, it's a lot easier for the rest of the year. They shuffle in on Thorazine, but well, let me ask you, why is it difficult to get to the authoritarian parent? Do they want to be helped by you? No, they know everything. Remember, they are right. Why aren't you like them? Okay, so they're not really like humble and hat in hand. What could you give me to help you be a better parent? They're like the best parent in school, and what's wrong with all the rest of them? One way you can teach with people, even if they don't want to hear it, is to model. And one of the things I recommend with authoritarian parents is for you to model to them what loving limits looks like. Show them, as you talk to them, just tell them what you're doing. Yeah, we had to set this consequence on him, but I also really wanted to support him in this way. Or you need to deal with this limit, but also I really think that he's really growing and exciting in this area. And for you to show them that balance together, that models for them how to do love and limits at the same time. Authoritarian parents do love their children. They just don't know how to do relationships well that involve limit setting and love. It's kind of like I used to love plants, but I would kill them. I love them, but I killed them. I'd go to the plant store and it'd be like dead man walking. He's coming to take another one of us away and kill him. I had to learn about that. And if you model that for parents, authoritarian parents, you're teaching them without having to become didactic, which they will not be very receptive to, as you know. So just do the modeling of that. And don't take too much responsibility for trying to change them. They'll never be pleased anyway. Finally, the compliant, permissive parent, which is sort of the epidemic in our culture, all of our favorite. Many of us are compliant, permissive parents. These are the ones at every event with a camcorder. These are the ones who are at the beach June 1st, because every other parent and child are at the beach June 1st. These are the ones who are getting their child, the latest fashion, because every other child has that latest fashion, even though they're like streetwalkers. And these are the ones who get their 5th grader cell phone, and they bail them out of all their problems, and they get them a new puppy, and they get them a golf cart with their name monogrammed on it. And you name it. This is Jackson. This is Madison. This is our world, right? Okay. These parents never want to upset their children for fear of kind of wounding their self-esteem or, intruding in their personal space, or, they don't want their children to have to suffer in any way. And they may feel like that the school is too strict, But these parents feel like Santa is too strict, There's that list of good and bad. That's just ridiculous. They're more like, if you have trouble with them at school, they're like, just come here, thank you. That school does not understand you. And they're sort of like that, okay? The dynamic here for these parents, I think, is very interesting. These parents are pleasers themselves. They were compliant children. okay, like we just talked about. And they're constantly trying to please their child. They're constantly being compliant to their child. And I have a little theory on why my generation of parents acts this way. I think it is my generation of parents, maybe yours too. But what these parents tended to be were compliant children with their parents. And they still are compliant children, only now with their children. Okay? In other words, not to be critical of the generation that parented our generation, but they tended to parent very much from a kind of a shame-based model, sort of a don't upset me, or you should be ashamed of yourself, or I can't believe you would act that way, young man, that kind of thing. Rather than an education model or a consequences model or a teaching model, it's sort of like, don't do this because you will upset me, okay? Now, our generation learned to obey, therefore, why? So we don't upset our parents, okay? So, what are we still trying to do? We're still trying to not upset the important people in our lives. We just exchanged our children for our parents. We're still trying to keep the people not from being upset at us, okay? We'll do anything they want, just don't be mad at me. And we kind of do that with our kids now too. So upsetting the children now creates the same feelings in our generation of parents that upsetting the parents used to. All right, sorry to get too psychoanalytic on you, but that's what's happening, I think. So they tend to be very permissive. They're very overactivity. Anything the child wants to do, it's like, we'll do piano and karate and French lessons and horseback and everything else. Anything else you want to do? They'll let them do anything. With little kids, they'll let them have tantrums and pitch a fit and kind of give in and get what they want. With older kids, what I see is it's like, yeah, we're going to let him go to Vegas with his friends with our credit card and, borrow the Porsche too. And, hey, we trust him. And they kind of let him get away with anything. One of the most offensive children I've ever worked with actually was so offensive that I told the parents I would work with them, but I would not see their child because there's just no reason to put myself through that. Okay? I'm giving you an example because this mother told me once, we just want her to know that we love her. And I'm like, I want her to know where juvenile detention is. That's kind of the mentality that these parents have. These parents are needful that their children like them, okay? And that takes away all their power. So, if you're a child and you have like a compliant, permissive parent who never wants you to be unhappy, how is this going to affect you? What's the act out version of it? How am I going to act if I have parents who are afraid of disappointing me? Selfish, good, exactly. I will, actually it creates a disease we call entitlement, all right? Entitlement is rampant in our children nowadays. I hate to see how poorly my generation of parents is going to be taken care of by our kids when we're old. They're going to be like, what do you mean? What have you done for me? Oh my God. Anyway, adolescents are really big into entitlement. They actually have a word for it. I'm not sure exactly how to spell it, but it goes something like this. It's like, how dare you deprive them of all? I had a mother tell me not long ago, she said her teenage girl could roll her eyes in 5 languages. And that's kind of where it gets to. I kind of deserve Cadillacs and caviar and Range Rovers and iPods and parking giving me what I want. That entitlement kind of mentality is kind of what our kids are doing. The acting in version of this, I think, is interesting because these kids will learn to equate love with coddling. In other words, if you love me, you will give me everything I want. So think how fragile love would feel to them. When things don't go their way, they're going to feel unloved. What do these kids need? The entitled kids need to learn something relatively simple that God is working to teach us all anyway, if we'll listen, and that is that we don't run the world. They're not going to like learning that. It's not like they've come and knocked on your door and said, my name is Sally, and I'm entitled and self-centered, and I'm looking for somebody basically to spend their life teaching me that I'm not the center of the universe. Would you like to be my sponsor? They don't tend to do that, but you've been put in that position as a teacher.